With over 19 games in the main series, spanning 3 decades, I think it's safe to assume that the Touhou series has an expansive lore. This is the Touhou lore iceberg. Chances are you probably know how an iceberg works, but in short, it's just a series of entries, and on the top part is the most well-known ones in the community, and the lower you go down the iceberg, the more and more obscure the facts get. I'm gonna put some heavily modded Left 4 Dead 2 gameplay in the background. Trust me, it will help lighten the mood when talking about concepts like Yuiko's suicide. The Genso Lunar War. The first Genso Lunar War, yes there were multiple, was caused by Yukari leading an army of yokai to the moon. Allegedly, the real reason why Yukari did this was just because she wanted to teach the yokai a lesson that it's better to stay in Gensokyo than just expand outwards. She tricked an army, telling that there's some really good stuff that the yokai can use in the lunar capital. Of course, this ended up being a one-sided battle because, again, Lunarians are really advanced comparing to just normal yokai. So again, like I said before, the battle was instantly won by Lunarians, no questions asked. Yukari used this war to obtain a lot of information about Lunarians. She used this information to plan the second Genso Lunar War that happened in SSEB. The reason why SSIB happened in the first place was basically because she wanted for Eren to know that she's in Gensokyo now, and now it's better to behave, and to get that sweet, sweet fear out of her, which of course worked out pretty well for Yukari. Now, I will have to say this though, the Genso Lunar War is really complex, so if this sounded like a really short summary of it, that's because it is. So if you want to learn more, I'd suggest you go read into it more, because this short entry that I just said here really can't do the whole Genso Lunar War justice. Impurity of life and death. Impurity appears in Touhou mostly in the context of the Lunarians. Yeah, remember those? They'll be back more, don't worry about it. The Lunarians seek to avoid impurity at all costs. They have like this crazy obsession over it, right? And because they have this crazy obsession over it, they possess some kind of plant which can detect impurity. Drinking the Honrai elixir, which you probably already know if you're a fan of Touhou, but it's basically just an elixir that Eren created, taints a person with the concept of death by its absence, and thus Lunarians consider those who have drunk it to be impure. Maribel is Yukari. There's this really weird fan theory going around that Maribel and Yukari are actually the same person. The basic idea of this theory is when Maribel sleeps, she dreams that she's Yukari, and when Yukari sleeps, she dreams that she's Maribel. So it's basically like one person split into two personalities that can only access one by sleeping. Because Yukari is nocturnal and is known to sleep during the day, neither of them would normally be awake at the same time. However, there have been cases in which both have been awake at the same time, as Yukari has been known to be awake during the day as well. Maribel is strangely able to cross the border into Gensokyo while dreaming, which is really weird. Maribel's clothes are also very similar to Yukari's clothes. I mean, look at them. They both wear red and white and purple, both characters have blonde hair and purple eyes, and they have the ability related to boundaries. So it wouldn't be far-fetched of an idea to say that these ones are the same person just split into two. Some fans go even further and suggest that Gensokyo itself was created in Maribel's dreams. However, all of these theories are not officially supported, but I do like the idea that Maribel and Yukari are kind of like the same person, but, you know, just split into two personalities. I kind of like that theory, but it's never been confirmed. The Dragon God. Dragon God, also called Ryuin, is, according to Perfect Memento in strict sense, Curse of Lotus Asia, and Touhou Sanagetsue, the highest god of Gensokyo. All living things, whether human or yokai, worship the Dragon God. The Dragon God lives in the sea, or sky, or rain. The dragon can move freely through heaven, hell, and even the netherworld. Its voice divides the sky and causes thunderstorms. Despite being a really destructive god, it is at the same time Gensokyo's god of creation. Because when it rains, the rivers, the abundant greens are all due to the dragon's help. So it's this kind of like all-knowing entity that encompasses everything. I will say this though, remember the name Ryuin because it will be very important later down the line. Trust me on this, just keep that name in your head. Not the dragon god, but just the name Ryuin. Sakya was a vampire hunter. Sakya being a vampire hunter is a theory that's speculated by Akuyus based on the fact that the silver knives that Sakya uses are the same kind of knives she used to slay vampires and other demons. The silver is one of the prime weaknesses of vampires, so why would Sakya have a knife coated in silver if she works for a vampire? The theory that was said by Akuya claims that long ago a young vampire hunter was training herself, defeating smaller demons in an unknown location, but never had the chance to actually fight a vampire. Confident in her abilities, she decided to set out on a journey to slay vampires and ended up at the Scarlet Devil Mansion. There she saw Romilia Scarlet, who was surprisingly strong, and Romilia easily defeated her. However, Romilia wanted the girl's power for herself, so she spared her life and gave her a new name, which also gave her a completely opposite fate. If we remember, Romilia has the ability to manipulate fate of a person in a way that will always work out for her. Well, sometimes. Sakuya then became the head mate of the Scarlet Devil Mansion before it was moved against Sakya. This is never actually confirmed by Sakya or Romilia herself, or by Zun for that matter, the creator of Touhou. But I do like this theory. But in my opinion, I see this as a far stretch, as Sakya always hated humans, so I think the first chance she got for working with a vampire that also hated humans, she just took it without the manipulating fate thing. And I think the silver-coated knives are just a reference that Sun put in, but it's a nice touch nonetheless. Oni migrated from Gensokyo to former Hell. This is really complex, so I'm gonna try and explain it to the best of my abilities, right? But first, we have to talk about Old Hell. Old Hell, or former Hell, I'm gonna be using Old Hell and former Hell in the same context, don't worry, is a region underground that was inhabited by many souls long ago, and actually once used to be Hell itself, since the name Old Hell or former Hell. The region itself formed a bridge guarded by Parsi, at the deep road to Hell, the old capital of Hell, and the palace of the Earth Spirits. Many Oni used to work in former Hell. Eventually, because of overpopulation, they just decided to move Hell to another place, make it bigger, so everybody moved out. Now, don't get confused with this little detail, because like I said, because of overpopulation, Oni used to migrate out of former Hell, and this entry states that Oni migrated from Gensokyo to former Hell. Hang in with me, because at the same time with all of the migration happening out from former Hell to Gensokyo, some Oni that already used to live in Gensokyo, yes, they used to live there, actually moved into Old Hell because it was just empty and barren, and some Oni really like empty, barren places. Yeah, it's really complex. Did you get all of that? I hope you did. Yukari intentionally lost the first Lunar War. I already said this in the first tier, but allegedly Yukari's real reason she wanted to go to the moon is just to teach the yokai a pretty good lesson. Is this because Yukari is a sore loser? No one will know, but this is her side of the story, I guess. Alternate timelines. I think this just refers to the fact that every fan work, every anime, every different ending in a Touhou game is technically an alternate timeline to the canon events, but it's never really stated anywhere, so there's not much I can say about that. Koishi closed off her third eye. Koishi and her sister Satori are both Satori monsters, go figure, right? Basically, it's a yokai that can read people's minds, right? In Touhou, this is due to their third eye. However, Koishi is an outcast in that regard. Looking at the two side by side, them being sisters and all, there's always like that one detail that I think gets overlooked easy, that Koishi has a third eye, but it's closed off. She closed off her third eye as to avoid the hate and dislike in which Satori, her sister, was experiencing due to that mind-reading ability. I mean, again, if you have a mind-reading ability, And there is no filter on it. You can read everyone's minds, regardless if you choose it or not. You're gonna get pretty depressing, since humans, you know, we're pretty dark. We have pretty dark thoughts. Koichi couldn't handle that, and so she shielded away her own third eye. This, of course, backfired, since she gained the ability to read and manipulate people's consciousness. This also means that she cannot be detected unless a creature actively looks for her or if she allows it. This whole thing of reading people's minds and only becoming visible if she allows it really comes with a price, since after she disappears, all your memories of her are completely forgotten, unless you've met her sister, but the chances of that are really unlikely. Which just makes your whole existence kinda lonely, don't you think? Unless Koichi can overcome this trauma of fear, she will never be able to open that third eye again. Now, it is important to note that Koichi's whole third eye thing is really in-depth and really complex. But again, if I left out some details or some small bits and pieces of her history, I'm sorry for that. But again, I encourage you to look into it yourself, because this lore is deep, man. It's really intense. Kappa and Tengu are trying to imitate the outside world. This could just refer to Ron's remark on Tengu by saying that Tengu are doing a half-hearted attempt to mimic the outside world. This is again further supported by the fact that Kappa and Tengu have GPS, cameras, flip phones, and other cool bits and pieces of technology that's really laughable in compared to the primitive lifestyle that most residents of Gensokyo live in. So could this just be that they are trying to imitate the outside world? If this is the case, then how do they know this knowledge? I'm gonna say Kaneko is responsible for something here, but I'm not sure. Yuriko killed herself. We all know Yuriko, the ghost princess. And the reason why she became a ghost princess is because she committed suicide. Why she did that is because she was born with a really cool, not really, ability to manipulate death. This basically states that she has the ability to, without exception, without permitting any resistance from the person, she can end life of every living being, whether it being a human or yokai, just by even thinking about it. Like, imagine you wake up one day and you just think, man, I really want this guy dead, and he just falls flat on the ground. Of course, this whole bearing of responsibility, Yuriko couldn't help it, and she killed herself due to it. So after that, she became like the ghost princess and stuff, which in my opinion gives a little dark twist to her carefree attitude, and just makes her an all-around sadder character than she has ever any right to be. The vampire incident. Nothing much more to say about this one. As far as I know, this is just peak fanfiction. I just found something on Reddit, and I found some on some fanfiction writers' blog about the vampire incident. This could also be referring to the Scarlet Mist incident, but I have no idea why it's so far down the list, if that's the case. Humans from the outside world are getting spirited away in Gensokyo as food. According to Perfect Memento in strict sense, outsiders in Gensokyo are also referred to as spirited away humans, right? This is stated in Yukari Yamato's Perfect Cherry Blossom profile, that outsiders generally end up in Gensokyo thanks to fluctuation in the border that's caused by her, messing around. Since the frequency of encountering them is considered to be low, this might just mean that outsiders don't end up in Gensokyo very often. It's not like the back rooms. But this could also have a little darker implication that most of them just get killed by yokai. This leads people to believe, or this leads people to have a little fan theory about them, that they are intentionally put in Gensokyo by Yukari, or someone else to just feed the yokai. However, this whole part has never been confirmed, So take that as you will. Rumia's ribbon is a seal. We all know Rumia, right? She looks like this. But did you know that her ribbon isn't actually a ribbon, but an amulet? It is known, this is canon, that the ribbon isn't actually a ribbon, but some kind of like amulet, and that she cannot touch nor remove it. The reason for this, no one knows. It's never been stated in canon why there's an amulet on her head, why she can't touch it, why she can't take it off. Who knows? So, naturally, this spawned the fan theory that Rumia is actually a very, very powerful being, and the amulet acts as some kind of seal that someone put on her to stop her from accessing her true form. This would make sense as Rumia is a man-eater, and if I was a human and I had the ability to put seals on yokai, I would probably put the seal on the yokai that can eat my whole family in an entire night. But this has never been confirmed, nor is this canon, so again, take that as you wish. Rin Satsuki. Oh boy, Rin Satsuki would have been the third playable character of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, but as we all know, she was cut during the production due to some time constraints. When I say a trace amount of data exists about her, I mean a trace amount. There is literally nothing. Only her name was left in the game data. No actual design, no personality exists. There have been theories and speculation that this sprite could be Rin, but as far as we know and as far as Sun confirms, this single line of code in the game is the only thing we know about Rin, and that she even exists. And for people that can't read Japanese, don't worry, me neither, that's just her name, right? But hey, that didn't stop the fans to give her a personality and design. That's power of the Touhou fandom, everybody. Personally, I have a soft spot for Rin, mainly because of the Your Next creepypasta. Go look it up if you're into really generic 2000 and like early 2000 creepypastas. It's wonderful. Go give it a read. Alice's Grimoire. The Grimoire of Alice is a spell book owned by Alice. Yeah, right, that makes sense. In the PC98 canon, she uses it against the heroine in the extra stage of Mystic Square. However, in the Windows canon, this never appears by name, but Alice does carry around a book with a locket on it. So it's widely assumed that this is the Grimoire. And the reason why she always has a lock on it is because, hey, she keeps it sealed due to the habit of her never actually wanting to fight at full power. She's basically like the Touhou equivalent of a Goku villain, you know? This isn't even my final form, you know? Lord Nai. This is just Tenshi's fodder. We have no idea how he looks like, or his personality. All we know is that he's referred to in Iku's win quote against Tenshi. Yuki Konpaku, someone that we do know a little bit more about. He is an enigmatic character who has yet to actually make an appearance in any Touhou game, but again, that didn't stop the community from giving him a design, and this is basically his canon design from now on. He was actually the first gardener in the Segui clan for about like 300 years, before leaving it to his successor and student Yomi Konpaku. But again, we haven't actually seen him in-game, but we do know that he exists. The Big Four of the Mountain. The Big Four of the Mountain is a now-defunct group consisting of Sukiya, Yugi, and Kansen, and one more unknown character, but that's most likely just an Oni. The Big Four of the Mountain has no actual context in Touhou, but I think this just refers to a similar story in the Buddhist religion. But quote me wrong. You can completely say that I'm wrong here. There was almost no information on this anywhere online, so hey, go crazy. Flan eats human pastries. In the Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, Flounder confesses to Marisa that she has no idea who prepares her human food. Her profile even confirms the pastries she eats are made from humans to some extent. This does make sense, again, they are vampires after all. TLDR, you can actually make pastries out of blood instead of egg yolk because they have a very similar protein content. Look up blood tofu cakes if you don't believe me. They are really tasty, and that's all I'm going to say about it. They're not made from human blood. Don't freak out. The human village is a zoo. Gonna be honest here, I could not find anything about this. Maybe this is just some kind of continuation from the humans from being spirited away from the outside world and get Tokyo as food? You know, that theory? I don't know. Maybe you guys know anything else, but I couldn't find anything on this. Makai collapsed during the Windows era. There are no mentions of Makai ever collapsing in both PC98 canon and the Windows era, so I have no idea what this could mean. We do know Makai appears in the Windows era in 2 stages, I think it was in Unidentified Fantastic Objects, but there was never any collapsing or not being accessible anymore. The best I can think of is in the bad ending of Unidentified Fantastic Objects, where the heroine gets stuck in Makai and, you know, her escaping is just top priority. But again, I have no clue what this could mean. Greater Hell. Greater Hell refers to a vaguely defined but interconnected group of various hellish areas. It's like Greater Hell, it's like all hells combined. This goes from former hell to new hell. So if you want to access all the 1,000 different dimensions of hell, basically see it as Greater Hell. Just go to Greater Hell. I'd say this is actually really complex, but yeah. There you go. Greater Hell. All hell combined. Rumi is not the only man here. You might be surprised, or not surprised, that Rumia isn't the only man-eater. Actually, yokai eat humans too. In Japanese folklore, kappas like Nitori eat children that get too close to the water. Tsurubi-oshiti, I'm not gonna pronounce it again, shut up, like Kisume drop onto humans when they are hungry, killing them instantly, just to eat their little flesh, you know. And the list goes on, right? Just, I'd say pick out one character in Touhou that you really love, go look up the yokai for them, and chances are that they're a human eater. Did I ruin Touhou for you? Yes? Good. Mistya sells human ribs in secret. This is nowhere in canon, but we do know that Mistya has a food stand, and like we touched on previously, yokai eat humans, so would it be really far-fetched? Iku is a messenger of the moon. Now, prepare to get your mind blown. I got my mind blown when first doing some research on this, so you will too. We do know that Iku is a messenger of something called the Dragon Palace. And remember that name of the dragon god that I told you to remember. If you didn't, that's fine. I'll name him up again. His name is Ryuin. In Japanese mythology, Ryuin is also the father of the goddesses Toyotamahime and Tamayori-hime, who are themselves the mythological basis for Toyohime and Yorihime. Not only that, he is the master of the legendary Dragon Palace. Alright, so we do know, Iku is the messenger of the Dragon Palace, and the Dragon God is the master of the legendary Dragon Palace. And you want to know something funny? The legendary Dragon Palace is, in the Touhou series, the lunar capital. That means that Iku, in theory, isn't a messenger of the Dragon Palace, but actually of the lunar capital. If you got your mind blown from that, same. And people ask me why I love Touhou. That's the reason why, baby. Yokai are not so scary, but when very angry, they can be horrible. This is probably a quote from the games. I couldn't find it anywhere. And no, I'm not looking through all the dialogue of the games just to find the singular dialogue to find out what it is. Alright, I'm not doing that. So if you have any idea on what this could be, who says it, what its context is, let me know in the description down below, please. I really want to know. I'll pin your comment, don't worry. Seiga's fetus using magic. It's well known that Seiga is a horrible person. Miku, her own ally, for context, gives Seiga as an example that Taoism, a sort of religion, can be used for both good and evil. Byukin, you know, basically the equivalent to Touhou Jesus, can literally sense the evil coming from her. And let's not talk about her reviving that whole yokai corpse thing as a mindless slave. And also, yes, fun fact, hermits, which, you know, that's the thing that Seiya is able to use and utilize fetuses as a means of attack, power, in some kind of spells. Just fucked up, man. Like, unused lore pieces. With all these, like, Touhou games out there, there are bound to be a lot of unused lore pieces. We've already mentioned Ren Satsuki, but did you know that, in fact, Ran and Yukari originally had a different last name? Suzuaki. Pretty cool, huh? There's much, much more, so I suggest you go watch this video, because, oh boy, there's a lot. Outsiders getting also spirited away in hell, heaven, and other worlds. Kind of like the same as before, you know, outsiders being put into Gensokyo from our world, but you can also get spirited away in other worlds like the moon, or hell, or heaven. This whole moon thing is actually referred in the official comic Cage in Lunatic Runegate. Mysterious train disappearances in real life. This probably refers to the Italian train named Giannetti, who left the Roman station in the year 1911. This central rail was supposed to pass through a tunnel, but as soon as the train entered the tunnel, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. Of course, people say this is some kind of myth, but come on. Between you and I, we all know who the real culprit is. Touhou 5.5. Touhou 5.5, otherwise known as Mima's Great Defeat, was a short anime made in 1991. The plot goes as follows. I'm gonna try my best to summarize it for you, but here we go. One day, Reimu and Marisa are discussing the fate of Gensokyo after the events of Touhou 5. After Reimu loses Marisa, she encounters Mima. However, when asked who Reimu is, Reimu lied to Mima to get away. This, of course, doesn't take long, however, as Mima finds out who Reimu really is, and she starts attacking while Reimu and Marisa defend the human village. Of course, because humans take no shit from nobody, an angry mob starts to form and starts to throw, like, fire and stuff at Mima. The mob that forms, together with the Shrine Maidens, defeat Mima, and without, you know, doing a little thing, they outright kill her. Like, kill her. She's dead. She won't be returning. She is literally dead. The next day, the town is shown feasting on what is presumably Mima's corpse, and a red light appears in the distance, revealing the next Touhou game, Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Did I fool you? Did I fool you? Well, the clever under you might have noticed that there's a large discrepancy in the story. And that's the release date. 1991? Really? Considering that the first Touhou game came out in 1996, how could an anime about the games that wouldn't be released until 6 years later be in an anime in 1991? All this is a really clever fanfic, but my god is it a good one, because it fooled me. Cancelled canon mangas. There are, indeed, cancelled canon mangas. Rumors say that they were too gory for the Touhou universe, so for your own safety, I wouldn't go look for them. A good girl is always a good girl. Otherwise known as this. I'm not gonna read that in Japanese, alright? I'm gonna be honest with you, I had to throw in the towel. I tried. I really tried for this one, okay? I really tried to find what this could mean, but I had no idea, alright? Looking it up in English gets me nowhere, and looking it up in Japanese leads my Google to go into a non-safe search mode. So, either this is some kind of line from a hentai that I'm not aware of, or this is something else related to something entirely. There was one guy somewhere out there saying that this is some kind of quote set to Sane, but I don't know. I mean, there is this one meme where Suwako goes like, "You're a good girl, Sane, so maybe that's that? Nue Honjuri's find variable forms. It is well known that Nue has the ability to modify her appearance. To some extent, you know. But did you know that one of her forms actually has been seen before without even knowing it? In stage 4 and stage 6 of Unidentified Fantastic Objects, there is this weird like ball of light texture entity, and looking into the code of this ball of light actually reveals that the name is just Nue Ball Lights, something like that. I'll put a screenshot on it right now. So this actually just confirms that this is one of her many variable forms. But of course, her human form is her true form. So, any knowledge of anything, we have seen one of her variable forms without even knowing it, which is really cool, isn't it? Well, that was it. I hope you enjoyed that. Not something I do here regularly, so don't worry. Games are gonna come back. I promise. Likes and comments are always appreciated, and have a good one.